Hey, we are here with our weekly hangout. A little bit later than usual. We had some things we had to take care of. Mike had to watch Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer play going on tonight, so he's
The littlest reindeer, the
dressed
littlest.
up. He's dressed to the nines. He had a hot day and rushed home, threw the kids in bed, and came over to
No,
get online.
I actually cut out early. I felt like a jerk leaving like as the play's going on, but my daughter's part was done. I just like, all right, I gotta go.
Nice, even better. That's dedication. I'll tell you that much. Then we also have Dane Fueling, our rankings guy. He got his rankings out today, and definitely a lot of work, and probably more work to be done after the next couple days of action.
Yep, next 2 weeks for sure.
Just as you wrapped them up, and there's more and more results coming in. Last weekend is probably one of the biggest weeks. I mean, biggest week we've had so far, and just individually and team wise. We'll start with you, Dane. We'll let Mike relax for a second. What do you see like this week? There's a ton of results. I know Cathedral Duels had 4 or 5 ranked teams, and that was a big one. What do you see this week that kind of popped out and got teams that? I mean, the whole rankings just got totally redone, and it looks like some teams jumped, some teams dropped.
Yeah, the biggest losers, I guess, of the week to start off with were probably Cathedral and Avon. We kind of got a feel, as is our November, early December custom, of figuring out who's on Cathedral's roster and who's not. It looks like they're going to be missing a few guys that were point scorers for them last year, and that's going to make a difference. They took a pretty big beating from Belmont, but did come back and beat Avon in a pretty close match. So they dropped down to 13, right behind Belmont, and Avon also dropped out. They've got a couple of their studs out for another week or two because of suspensions. But when they come back, Avon will definitely be stronger. The biggest winner of the week is Portage, who has been pretty impressive so far, and some big wins over Elkhart Memorial, 30-point win over Lawrence North, who also moves up in the rankings, 50-point win over Chesterton, I believe, and then the win at the Harvest Classic over Penn. And I don't think anybody can dispute that Penn's a top 5 team in the state. So Portage moves up, and Penn didn't really drop, other than making room for Portage to sneak in front of them. That did move Yorktown up to number 2. It was a tough decision between them and Perry on 2 and 3. Still trying to get a feel as to where those lineups are going to be here as we head to the state duels at Ball State in January. But as the lineups settle in, it'll be much easier to get these teams ranked at the top, at the overall, for sure.
Yeah, I wondered when I saw Yorktown number 2. That's they still haven't had their lineup solidified. They're still thinking about dropping or bumping kids up and stuff. And I know Dylan Jackson hasn't been in the lineup yet.
Correct.
He's definitely a big time point scorer. So we'll see how they finish up. Perry has a pretty solid team, top to bottom. Not the big names you're used to seeing with Perry, but they're going to be big names by the end of this year. I know that's the way they
right.
usually they're kind of reloading, and it's not going to be pretty for a while.
And that's the thing, and that's what at least I try to do with these rankings is, I mean, we could rank them based on what they've done so far and that only, but I think it's more fun to have a set of rankings that project when Yorktown is at full strength, are they better than Perry Meridian? And that's kind of the hard part at this point early in the season, is trying to make your guesses as to what their lineup's going to look like. And you could rank Avon lower, but you know that Quinn Harris is going to be back, Elmore's going to be back. You know that Cathedral's still not at a full lineup, and you've got to keep that in consideration when you look at these results.
Definitely. I know. I'm sure the new website definitely is helping you with a little bit easier to do your rankings. We have 1,200 more results than we did last year, so already it's one of
Yeah.
those things. I'm sure you're very appreciative of people inputting results, especially with details.
Yeah, and that's what it's really all about. I mean, allowing us to have these 1A and 2A rankings. I mean, that's the only reason we can do it is because people are finally posting those results. There's some teams out there that are posting every single duel that they have, all the individual results, small schools, big schools. The names start to stick in your head when you look at them long enough. But I appreciate it, and I have sent out a couple of thank yous to some guys who didn't post last year that have been. So we definitely appreciate it.
Yeah. Speaking of the 1 and 2As, 3A, I mean, it's basically the top 10 reproduced minus Yorktown, obviously,
Correct.
for 1A or 3A. 2A, it looks like it's a race for second because Yorktown they're too solid top to bottom. What do you look seeing at 1A? That's the big one. That's going to be, you're going to get the roll of the dice. I feel bad for having to choose those teams to go to team state because to
Yeah.
predict what's going to happen at those size schools from year to year, you might as well draw names out of a hat. It seems.
Yeah, you hate to get in a situation where the number one team in a class is not invited to the tournament, but with 1A, I mean, some of these teams we're looking at in the top five, they are forfeiting one or two weight classes still. In some cases, three. And it's hard to tell in a school that small whether that's going to continue to be a forfeit, whether they're going to all of a sudden put somebody in there that's not going to give up a fall every time. Prairie Heights was not even on my original top 10 because they graduated so many guys, but they filled those lineup spots pretty well, and I slotted them just behind Adams Central at number 2 this week, um, ahead of West Central, who has some nice results, but no big wins like Prairie Heights had. Just a domination of Cherubusco last week, and the other team that moved up was Fremont after beating um, after beating Cherubusco also and Westview and a couple other of the top 1A teams.
Yeah, I'm looking at the rankings right now, and I like it because I added what their records are versus 1A schools. I know like Union County is 4-9 overall, but they're 3-1 against 1A schools. So it kind of, if you put that they're 4-9, it doesn't look very good. But you
Correct.
add,
Correct.
they're wrestling 2 and 3A schools. So yeah, they're going to be, their record's going to show a little bit worse. I mean, they wrestled 7 2A schools and haven't beat one of them. But I mean, they've been wrestling close with all those schools. It's a matter of, that's a 100-kid difference. You get 100 more kids in your school. That's huge. So I know Prairie Heights look pretty impressive. They've only have one loss, and that's to Harrison. So that's a pretty good resume so far. And I
Yeah,
think
and Harrison's not had a bad year either. They're not too far away. They're a top 30, top 35 team overall.
yeah. So that's not a bad loss when you have 400 or 500 kids in your school. So actually 455 if you want to be exact. So yeah, they
Yeah,
have some.
and
Go ahead.
and like you were saying with Union County, as we get into start trying to seed these teams at the state duels, that's one of the things that we're really going to want to look at is you can't just look at a team and say they're 4-9. Oh, don't seed them. It's a matter of who have they wrestled, and especially with the 1A and the 2A, really looking at who they've beaten and who they've lost to. You could lose to Warren Central, Cathedral, and Avon, and be 0-3 and still be a much better team than somebody who wrestled somewhere with teams that have 6 forfeits on their lineup.
Yeah. So well, things are starting to work out a little bit. You're getting some lineups, getting kids back. So it's definitely it's starting to probably gel together a lot better than you do early in the season, where you're projecting where guys are going, projecting what teams are going to replace. Their graduated seniors. It's always obviously easier with 3 or 2A schools because they usually have the tradition that they have, you know, 10, 20, 30, 50 JV kids some places. So that Perry Meridian, when they fill in a spot, it's going to be a good kid, a solid kid. I mean, you don't know that at smaller schools. So we're
Right.
gonna.
When you're doing those preseason rankings on 1A, sometimes you're comparing a team of 6 to a team of 7 to a team of 9, and it's really hard because you're basically going off of reputation. You know that Adams Central's JV is going to be better than Union City's JV guys coming in because of reputation. That's about all you have to go off of.
Yep. So we'll transition into before we get talking about we're gonna probably talk about the Calumet Traicoff a little bit. Talk to Mike. He's had the same issues just on the individual side. He has to watch a few more kids. Tell us a little bit about what you went on this past weekend. Guys that stuck out. The harvest was a big one, and I know any other big results that you saw that stuck out to you this weekend.
Yeah, obviously we get to go to the harvest, and I was doing the announcing, which was kind of cool. I really enjoyed that. I'm sure I butchered a bunch of names, but you get to see Penn, and man, Portage is really good. Penn's really good. They had a couple kids out of the lineup. And then, you get to see the results from Cathedral Duels, so you had some good matches in there. Just a ton of good wrestling, Now you're kind of seeing a little bit more. We obviously found out Nick Lee is going to be ready for the start of the season. He got to wrestle. We were hearing that he had a banged-up knee, and he went out there and still competed. It looks like he's going to be at 32, which, it kind of gives you some, it's an exciting weight. Brayton Lee's there. Obviously, they're wrestling Avon tonight, but that dude's a monster. Him and Nick Lee's a good matchup, or even Brandon James could be there, or 38, however they fall. With Tommy Cash there, that's going to be good too. The harvest was good. I was not that I was disappointed. Like, obviously things happen, and I think there's a stomach bug going around. I guess they shut down Andrean a couple weeks ago, and Hobart kind of caught a stomach bug, so some of those kids were out. Like Triana didn't wrestle, so you didn't get to see the Triana with some of those sixes, and Brendan Black didn't get to wrestle, so I went to kind of see him and Reitz. But there was still a lot of good matches. 52 was good with Jared Swink and Cody Christensen and Mike Christen. So you kind of see where those guys fall. But really, the maneuvering in there is still kind of happening. You still see guys coming down a little bit. We ranked Ferguson at 26 this week, but it sounded like he's going to be at 20. So that's just one of those moves that, you see a guy wrestling up, and you're like, well, maybe he'll stay there. And they ended up not. And then people send you messages and tell you you're wrong. But I like that back and forth. I get a ton of messages. A ton of people are so supportive. It's great. Even on the microphone, people butcher names, and people are like, oh no, it's good. One guy was really upset, but if out of everyone there, if one person's mad, I guess I did a good job.
Yeah, if you only made one person mad, you did a real good job.
He was really mad though. I'm not gonna lie. But you get a lot of matches. You get to see some guys, and I like the guys like Blake Ripel. He bumped up to 220 and wrestled Gunnar Larson, and man, that's a huge jump because I don't think Blake's even a full 195, and he's going up and wrestling one of the top guys at 220, and really dominate. I didn't see the match. You only get to see the box score of it, but man, that's a dominating point total.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I know I like watching it when kids chase matches, especially when they have the opportunity. It's one of those things that makes the sport fun, and if I'm sure that was that decided the duel. I think pretty much. I mean, that helped. I mean, Blake would have got 6, but probably at 95, but Larson would have beat whoever they had. So I mean, that's a huge win for them. That might that gives them straight trading 6 and 6. Probably they ended up probably coming out ahead. Cathedral probably came out ahead 8 or 10 points. So it's always one of those things that it's cool to number one, he's probably chasing a match, chasing those, testing himself. I know Raipal's not shy about wrestling, anywhere, anyone, anywhere. I mean, he's gone all over the country this past spring and summer, so those kinds of things, make the sport fun to watch and stuff.
I mean, how good is that though? That's what makes it, these guys really good. I think people kind of lose sight of like that. That's how these guys get to that point, Like, hey, how did you get good? Well, we wrestle good people. We take the best competition. Even this week, we had some really good duels. Alec White and Skylar Turner. Alec White beat him. That's an awesome match for like a Wednesday duel. Kovac and Bam Lawrence last night at Maryville. I got to see that match. We were out there. Not we, but I was out there. And man, it was for like a 2-to-1 match. It was a really good match.
Yeah, it sounded like that. You kind of sounded a little excited in your text to me.
It was exciting. I'm sure people like see me all excited. I'm just sitting there by myself, and I didn't sit by any of the parents, and they're probably like, "Oh, who are you following? Like, which one of these are your kid?" Like, I'm just a fan.
Avon beats Brownsburg 28-26.
Nice. Did you guys see Nick's promo? It was really good.
No, I didn't. I saw this video. Was that what you were talking about, or something else?
That was good. I like that.
It's inspiration. That I saw that on Twitter, so I thought I would relay that. So Avon looks like they have Helm, Elmore, both won. I did not see Harris won also. So looks like they might have been closer to full strength. So it's gonna be a little West Side Indy rivalry starting now probably until the end of time. So that's interesting.
Good.
We'll have to. Maybe Nick will get on and he probably won't be very happy.
Yeah.
I was hoping he'd be live on the spot, but so anyway, didn't want to interrupt you. I just saw that.
The duel, man.
Drinking's all right though. He did have Avon over Brownsburg, so gotta give him a pat on the back.
Yep.
So that was
the duel last night was good, and I think Maryville and Portage do a great job. Obviously, you got 2 Division I guys running your program. You're in good shape. With Maryville has David. He wrestled at Iowa State, and Portage got Leroy Vega. Eric Keith was a Division I guy. His brother Kyle wrestled at University of Indianapolis. So it's you got good people in your room, and you're going to be better. So that duel is just going to get better. And those guys, they're like, oh, we belong at Team State. I'm like, yeah, you guys do. You really do. You guys are a really good squad. They don't have, like, outside of Bam and Gage, they don't have that guy that's like, man, that guy's going to be the champ, And obviously Gage kind of falls in there with Chad Red, which, not to give anyone a state title, but that guy's got 2.
He already has 2, and he still has 2 more years left. Yeah, that's what we were talking about before we got on about how Portage is young. They have 4 seniors, and and they're not even. 2 of them are around 500, another one decent, and Hendrick, and the other one a little above average. I mean, none of them are like lighting the world on fire. They're loaded with sophomores and juniors. So next year, I mean, I'm sure barring any meltdown during the state series, I think they'll be a favorite to make it next year to Team State, which. I know I wouldn't want to be on that committee to have to choose those teams and try to predict who's going to be good. We can complain all day. We got to the system we have. I think it's it's good, not great, but I mean I'd like to see them in there. They'll be able to prove where they belong probably this week at the Traicoff. So.
And I think what hurts Portage too is that Maryville was bringing back a strong team, not like top to bottom. They're not as deep as like a Portage, but they have some hammers on that team. Like if I told you had 6 automatic wins, you're gonna think you're gonna win 90% of your duels.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have 6, but they definitely have a handful.
Yeah, they definitely do, and like we were even talking about it last night when we were texting back and forth, and it's like they have 5, 6 hammers, but yet, I mean, Portage put it to them. When you're talking 2 top 10 programs going at it, that's a 16-point difference. I think it was. That's pretty significant. That's 2 two big matches at least, if not three matches that have to go the other way next time if they would wrestle again. So I mean that's a pretty big gap when you're talking two top teams wrestling. You know,
And,
that's not a kid giving up a major, or a kid that was up 3-2 getting pinned or something. That's a big difference.
and not to like weigh too much on the region, like obviously I'm going to see more region than anything, but man, like these two programs, and I'm just using them as an example, get kids to that next level. Like you'll see a kid early on from Maryville and be like, man, that kid looks like he could be good, and then he's getting a medal. Like Willie Armstrong last year. It was a kid like it was like, oh, this kid's gonna be pretty good, and then he's getting a medal. Or Keon Jones that one year, dude's in the state semifinals and like does like a full Nelson and double overtime to lose to McGinley. And I think David does a really good job at getting these kids to that level and getting them to buy in. And you see it a lot in Portage too, like where Portage is getting these kids to buy in and buying that old Portage style. We're gonna run you and run you and run you and break you in the third period. Because they had some young freshmen going yesterday, and one was a kid that was a Lake Ridge kid that broke a kid that was in the semi-state last year. Had a tight match with Jake Gross. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I hope that kid's not going to be like, oh, he broke me, sure. But, I mean, I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. Like, the kid was up big and then came back and ended up getting pinned. And it was just like – but those kids that get to that next level going that way.
Yeah, definitely.
I could talk about the South if you guys want. I'm sorry.
Nah, we'll start transition. I know both you guys are going to have your eyes on – one of you will be there. The Traicoff this weekend. We've been kind of discussing it a little bit. It looks like it's probably one of the better ones that we've seen in a while. You really have about four pretty, the top four teams look like they're a little bit better than everybody else, and then you have 8 teams that are just, you roll of a die who's going to win between them, and then we have some teams that aren't as good as the other ones, but I mean it looks pretty solid top to bottom. We got Cathedral, Franklin, Portage, Crown Point, all there. Those are the top 4 teams. Any predictions? Any things you guys are kind of looking forward to seeing there?
Go ahead, Dane. I'll let you start off, man. I just talked for like 10 minutes.
No, I mean I think the nice thing is the way this tournament's set up is you're going to get those top 4 teams are going to be in that top pool, and they're going to be at the center of that gym. And they're all going to have a shot at each other. And for a team to come out of that pool 3-0, it might not happen. They may all share losses. It's hard to tell at this point. I've been to the Traicoff a couple times. I'm surprised at how good the 9 through 12 teams are this year. I mean, it's a really deep tournament, and you're going to see some of those top 4 teams are going to give up 15 or 20 points in that very first round. Which is something that you haven't seen the last couple of years. So I'm impressed overall with how well. I mean, Valparaiso's had a pretty good year so far. Just looking at some of the other ones, Lowell hasn't had a bad year so far. South Bend Riley had a couple of bad results first weekend, and then came back and wrestled the same team again and outscored them by. They bested their score by like 30 points. So they've definitely improved. But yeah, that top pool is going to be. There's going to be some good duels there.
Yeah, that Mishawaka-Westfield match, Mishawaka's undefeated right now. It's hard to tell exactly where they are. Westfield's taken some bad losses. I think that's going to be an interesting first-round match, and unfortunately one of those teams is going to be on the backside, and when they both could easily be in the top 8, right there.
Yeah.
Southmont, Valpo's, we saw them early in the season, and they have some pretty good kids. But then everywhere else, they just have solid, above average kids that are solid. They're scrappy. They're gonna, they're not gonna beat the elite guys, but they're semi-state level guys that are that what you need to fill in your lineup, after your first 3 or 4 guys. And I don't know exactly what Southmont has, so I don't want to call that upset, but I think that's gonna be one to watch. It's just I'm curious, to see that top 4, but also that 5 through 12 is going to be interesting. That's going to, play some, it's going to be interesting to see where those teams all fall. I mean, Lowell has their horses, and if they match up well, they could, give some teams some fits. They have some big scores, and you never know when you have, like you said about Merrill, when you have three or four, you have a handful of guaranteed wins. You get those, that's going to make it interesting. You get a couple other matches in your favor. So, I mean, Riley's a good team, and looks like they're, going to be. They could give Franklin a decent run. So, we'll see how that shakes out.
I feel like Riley's one of those teams too. Like it's hard to, get an equation for those guys when you add a guy like an Austin Laughlin, a state qualifier from another school, or you're gonna get kids like that, and from all I've heard is that like a Ben Stewart's out, and that's a dude that was good. That's a good guy in Cathedral's lineup. I'm sure that they thought was gonna be a guy that could be pushing for a medal, semifinals maybe. That's gonna follow a football career, but obviously there's more money in that.
Yeah, well, he has to stay a little injury free. He hasn't. That's wrestling is a grind on your body mentally and physically, so that's definitely a big one.
And that hurts. And obviously it's only rumored until he's not there. But that's one that will hurt them because that's a guy that would win. What did he win last year? 30-something matches.
Yeah, he was going to take it around to state and probably won at least 30 matches. I don't know if he wrestled the full schedule they had, but he was right there. I mean, I think he lost a Tante maybe. But he was ready to take it.
Here last year, he was right there with Stevenson.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that match. Stevenson, I think I pinned him at the end of it, like kind of caught a low single and stacked it. But it was like a 1-point match. And that's kind of wrestler they're losing. So I understand like how hard it is to pick teams to go to state. Like, hey, we got to pick these guys. We're going to invite them. But like, it's hard to put that equation in there, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Also, in the region this weekend, we do have the Maryville Tom Cameron duels. And someone hinted that Penn might be sending their first team there. So I don't know how true it is. They might send half their first string guys. Sometimes they have 14 different varsity lineups. So you never know what they're going to pull out of the bag of tricks. So that would be interesting.
Black team, gold black team, gold team.
They have every color in the rainbow. They have a fuchsia team, pink.
Penn looked good at the Harvest. There were some spots they weren't like last year. They were very much top to bottom, very good. Like every weight class was someone that was going to be semi-state. I think they took 13 to semi-state, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're that good this year, but they definitely have some guys. Kobe Wood looks like he filled into 220. If he goes 95, it's going to blow my mind. The dude looks huge.
Yeah, he looked.
That's on another level. Like Lake Station has a heavyweight and a 220 that are huge. These kids are like, they're heavyweights put together like Brock Lesnar, but not as cut. But he's a big kid, and these kids are getting ran. And Kobe Woods is just doing it up. So Penn has the same thing. They kind of have some hammers. Obviously, they got Osborne and Mamalenti, Hildebrandt, Swank. Those guys are all really good. I thought Denzel Prentice was going to be in their lineup. He wasn't, so I don't know if he's going to get in there or not. That's a guy I always thought was really good. He always was a medalist. So if they can get him in and then get Slate's back and maybe get Cameron Beam in there somewhere, they're just as good top to bottom as anybody.
Yeah, their weak spots in the middle where they could. They actually, I guess they probably would you consider them versus Modern Day. They actually might match up well since they don't have their strong, they don't have their horses in the middle where you're going to run in the lees and stuff like that. It's Modern Day, so Modern Day's going to get their pins, but it's gonna that'd be an interesting matchup. Just going offhand, just because it's looking. You got to throw Perry in there too, but those teams are all very solid. So it'll be interesting come state time. So I don't know if I do know that Dane is on the seating committee for the team state. So coaches send him nice letters, flowers, chocolates. Team gets seated. I'll just fire him if Carroll doesn't get seated. Number one. saying that. No pressure. No pressure.
That seeding team
The
got a lot
nice
more.
the nice thing we have to do is the same thing with the Traicoff is we kind of got to separate teams into groups and then let the groups work themselves out. So,
Yeah. No.
but
It's
yes, the more information we have, especially those 1A teams. There were teams that weren't on the radar 2 weeks ago that are ranked top 5 now because there was so little information available. So keep posting details.
Yep, that's good. So definitely, it looks like, for team state-wise, I know that's 2 weeks away. We still have a lot of wrestling to go on. It's gonna be a little bit better seeded, I think. Instead of coaches' rankings, which it's not having a lot of information is probably a big reason, but also one of those things that you really don't get a good grasp of the whole state for 3 or 4 weeks into the season. And right now we're starting to hit the good part where we're getting, terms like the Traicoff, we're getting the big duels, things like that are going to make it a little bit it's going to be easier when three, I don't know if I'll call them brilliant minds, just so I can butter up to you guys, but get together and, discuss it and use logic and things like that, hopefully. Or just, who do you like better, who has better looking coaching staff or whatever.
Yeah, you lose that.
Oh, cuts deep, Dan.
Any other big matches you guys are looking forward to this weekend that you have on your radar? That any individual matches or any team matchups that I know there's the NHC duels going on. There'll be probably nothing too big. There'll be some good individual matches, but probably nothing team-wise unless something drastic happens. But around here, is there anything else that's going on that you guys are keeping your eyes on?
I'm all Traicoff all the time right now, man.
Me too.
I love track wrestling. I wish I could pay for everyone to have track wrestling. That makes it so much easier.
Yes, it does.
I don't know if that sounds weird. But
we need to start getting more teams on there and stuff, and it definitely makes my job easier to I'm keeping track of results, and I'll go there once a day, pick out results that we don't have and add them. I know you two probably are spending a lot of time on there, so keeping tabs on kids and teams definitely is easier in that way.
Yep.
There's always tons of individuals. There's gonna be someone's gonna come out of this weekend at the Traicoff that was probably on the watch list or not even on my rankings, and be like, wow, that guy's really good. We need to have him ranked, and it happens all the time. And weirdly, like my brother who watches like 4 matches a year go there, like that guy's gonna be a state semifinalist. I'm like, okay, cool, man. And then dude end up in the state semifinals. It blows my mind. So
maybe I should have him as the ranking guy.
he would do like updates like once a month. He wouldn't respond to emails. You don't want that.
Well, when his name's Mr. Wrong, I gotta give him a hard time.
Yeah, he was upset. He signed on for the first time while I was at the Harvest and said, "Hey, man, they lost my picture. Like, why is my picture not uploaded?"
Oh, jeez, rough.
Yeah, so these are the conversations I have with them.
So maybe, I like having you. Sorry, you're a lot better than him. Any other ones any matches that you're looking at, Dane, in this weekend or even early next week? Obviously, I know one that you're going to be heavy on in next week.
Yeah, maybe me, us versus you. No, just really trying to see what happens in that top pool at the Traicoff, and there's a few other tournaments that have some of these top 1A teams on it. Trying to figure out where those teams are going to go to get a better feel as to what the seed should be once we get to Ball State here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's I can understand the 1A is probably one of the hardest ones to do, and probably when you you're probably gonna put more time into that one than the other two combined. Yeah. As far as trying to at least group the top 4-ish teams and let them.
Correct.
I mean, just try to group. I mean, like you said, group the top four and let them figure it out. I mean, that's what seeds are about. You separate the best teams and let teams or kids, whatever you're seeding, let them sort it out. You don't want to put a number one team the fourth, or like 7 or 8, but you don't want to, obviously put that 7 or 8 team number one either. So definitely will be
Correct.
some interesting.
And you can tell there's some 1A coaches out there that are making sure that we know that all the information that's out there, and we appreciate it. And some of the 1A teams are posting more details than just about anybody, and that's the way it should work, because we don't want to have a team ranked incorrectly just because we didn't have enough information to go off of. So
I rank kids incorrectly all the time, man. It's all right.
if you're wrong, people will tell you.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. That's the old Zach saying. If you get it wrong, they'll let you know.
Yeah, that's the fun part, But
I like that though. I feel like it brings us closer as a community.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely want to say thanks to all those people that are putting out results. I mean, we have 200 more than we did last year, and possibly after this weekend, we will already be like ahead of this coming weekend as far as results. So we're at least pretty close to that. So that's pretty cool to have that many more. I know one thing, we had a officials and coaches meeting this week in Fort Wayne area, and Robert Falcons was there, and I stuck around and talked to him a little bit and told him that we had like 200 more full results just this early, and his jaw like dropped. He's like, wow. And he hadn't seen the website. I gave him a hard time, but he did showed him a few things. Definitely liked everything that I showed him the wrestler profiles, and he was like, wow, that's pretty cool. SAT scores and things. So definitely, it's neat to see that we are getting people not just in our sport, people, the leaders in the sport are coming to IndianaMat and stuff. So, and checking it out, and very impressed with especially the upgrades. I did get a nice message from Tommy Cash's dad, about the website. He's like, wow, I just dug around a little bit today, and I can't believe what we have here, So hopefully more people take advantage of it. There's my rant for the night.
No, you guys do a lot of hard work, man, and not that that me and Dane don't, because I think what Dane does is awesome. That's always tough, because I affect one person, he affects like an entire team. But man, you guys put so much work in, and it was very hard. I'm sure that it wasn't easy, and then even once we started doing things, we started correcting ways that we can do it easier. And you guys always do a really good job. And everyone I've talked to has had rave reviews. I tried to explain it to the guy from the Times. I think he was just humoring me. I was like, oh man, you gotta check it out. If you want to do articles, go here. He's like, oh cool, man. So this guy's number 1 and this guy's number 2. Yeah, that guy's number 1 and 2.
Nice. No, it's always fun when people don't realize when they, like, especially media people, start coming to the website, like, whoa, they get overwhelmed. And hopefully it makes media people's jobs easier, especially if you have a big matchup that you can go check out both teams and say, okay, this team has these guys are ranked. I know 145 match is going to be real good and things like that.
Oh yeah. It alleviates the part of like, oh, you hear a lot more people saying, oh, is this that guy that's ranked number 2 and that was second last year. It was like you're happier to hear that, because they'll be like, oh man, that guy looks like he's pretty good. Like that guy's a runner up, he's really good.
Yeah, I did have a kid today. One of my kids, he's now going to be off the team, but he didn't know what IndianaMat was. So
that's good.
Grounds for dismissal.
Yeah, that's he has to give a full report to the team tomorrow before practice on what IndianaMat is before he can do anything.
Kim gets a lot of the IndianaMat shirts, and someone at her work asked her, like, man, you really like those koala shirts?
Nice.
And she's like, no, it's like a wrestling website. And they're like, oh, like WWF has like a bear on their shirt, and like it's a gorilla.
Nice.
So.
But anyway, we'll make this one kind of short tonight since we got a little bit later start. Anything you guys want to add for this coming weekend? Anything that we're doing?
Who do you have winning the Traicoff, Dane?
I really don't know. I think at this point, we were talking earlier. It's hard to take what Portage did and and put Penn down. It was more of a lifting Portage up. I think I'd like to see what Cathedral finally has as their lineup to make those decisions a little bit easier. But it's going to be interesting, and it may be a case where those 4 teams all go 2-1. You just don't know. And Franklin, everybody kind of has dismissed them because they had so many kids graduate, but I mean, they didn't just chance into winning the state duels last year. They had a really solid team last year, so it's gonna be interesting.
And they still got that state champ, right? They still got a hammer at 70. That guy's pretty good.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, they should have a. God, that's weird. Yeah, they should have a pretty good team coming through here. So that'll be interesting to see what they have coming back and coming into the lineup.
I'm going Portage. I think Portage is winning it.
Yeah,
I think that's who I've ranked the highest. So I guess that's who I have to pick.
I think
they have a little
Portage
chip on their shoulders, so they're going to be coming in, showing that everyone was wrong that they didn't pick me, which not totally a bad way to go through the season. I mean, if you want to have a chip on your shoulder, get after it and use that as your motivation.
Yeah, because they legitimately have a shot to win the whole thing next year, the following year, with as young of a team as they have back.
Yeah.
Do you think Valpo or Southmont's going to be able to knock off Cathedral there? That was the one I was like, man, that's going to be a really good match.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like we've been talking this week, what are any of those guys that were on the football team? Are they coming back? Is Gould going to be back? It's hard to tell.
Joe said that the heavyweight at Valpo state semifinal. So did McGill. I got the guy running the side giving me a hard time, telling me I'm underranking people.
I just said he was over a couple other guys that I've seen and comparing semi-comparable results. So I didn't say he was a state semifinalist. I said he was.
No, that was McGill told me that he's a state semifinalist, and he could be, dude. He is really good.
Yeah, and he's big. He's a big dude, and he wrestled our guy last year, and our guy was a 210, 215. I thought he put him down a little harder than he probably should have. We got a penalty, and I thought he killed our guy. I was like, oh goodness, we're going out on a stretcher, and because he's big and he's strong, so
fast. He's strong. He's fast.
I mean, his biggest thing is he's gonna have to go through Streck, and I don't see many people giving Streck last more than a minute with him.
I mean, they're not the same regional. Maryville's at Calumet and Valpo's at Crown Point, so I mean, luckily that won't be a ticket round, which unless something catastrophic happens, because I seen Streck last night, and that dude is Giovanni Morello, the heavyweight from Portage, was in the mix to win the Harvest. I think he ended up getting pinned in the 3rd and 4th place match, and Streck pinned him in like 44 seconds. I think it was 20 seconds. Just that dude's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And now there's Little Streck.
Little Streck lost last night. I think he's still adjusting from that 220 middle school to 220 high school.
Yeah.
Which, hey, that's a jump. You see some guys who are outside of a Bryce Baumgartner who had great results, and he had great results last year. You see 152 middle school state champs. Like, my guy was a 152 middle school state champ. And then he comes to high school and loses a lot, and you're like, it's a little different. The 52-pound grown men you're wrestling are a little better.
Yeah,
the 7th grader.
I know one guy he's bucking your trend is that Mason Paris. He bumped up and beat Cav Evans. Yeah, that's one kid out of the South. We don't have Triple B on here tonight, so we don't. You can keep your volume a little bit lower, but
they're Indianapolis guys, right?
Yeah, they're outside. Well, Indianapolis is south for me.
Yeah, south for me too. Yeah, we should have talked about that. Wasn't Cavins was at Fargo? Didn't he have a good Fargo?
He placed in Greco. He's a 2-time All-American in Greco.
And this dude jumps up and just does work. I just wanted to point out that last year when we were doing the incoming freshmen in the last show, I was the one that said Mason Paris. That's just me. Eric was Triana. Nick was B. Lee, obviously.
I probably who was I? Was I Jolie maybe? I don't know who I can't remember that far back. I've slept since then.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, Jolie's up at 38, so that'll be interesting. He was wrestling 20 this summer, so that's a 20-pound jump.
How awesome is your room that you're like, hey, we graduated our 52. We're going to throw this kid in at 52. He's a semi-state qualifier 2 years ago. He just couldn't make our lineup. Oh, that kid that was ranked for us like 2 years ago? Yeah, he's our 52-pounder now. Like, oh, thanks, guys.
Rough problem. I'm sure a lot of schools are feel sorry for programs like that. Much like when I tell people we have 60 kids and they don't feel sorry for us. So, anything where I guess any last? I mean, we got our predictions for the Traicoff. Any other?
Who did you pick? I picked Portage. Who did you pick?
I'm gonna say Portage. I think they're too solid top to bottom. It looks like.
Dane's going Franklin. I'm going Portage. You're going Portage.
No, I took Portage. I got Portage ranked 4th.
No, if I knew a little bit more of what Franklin had, I know they just had a duel and they haven't posted their individual results. If I kind of knew a little bit more, from what I heard, like, was it last year? I think they said that they have a real good freshman class last year. That they're obviously was held back behind all those seniors, so they might. I mean, they're a program that reloads. I could see them. I mean, Coach Hosman, he's a Finley alum, so you got to. Sometimes you can't count them out. Can't count out those Finley alums that they can coach. From what I've heard,
they beat Columbus East tonight, 50-16.
Yeah, Columbus East has some good kids. I don't know if they're how tough they are. So that's still a pretty good whooping, and shows that they still have a pretty good team. So we'll have to see what goes on.
As I sit here and give them out, I'm looking at Columbus or Franklin's lineup. They got Van Horn, Wilkerson, Burnside, Reese, Quinn York, Stevenson. Stevenson didn't even wrestle tonight, and they still won 50-16. So maybe I'm selling those guys short. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not gonna count them out. I think Portage, they're riding the high. They have a little chip on their shoulders, so we give the edge to Leroy Vega. I did wear my Vega wrestling shirt the other day at practice. So, looks like looking at the Brownsburg Avon, Helm pinned Nathan Walton. That's huge. That's the first match,
right?
Yeah, that was the first match of the duel, and that's enough. That's pretty much. I mean, yeah, you probably would have. You're doing that duel on paper. You're not expecting. Walton's a tough freshman. You expect him to get pinned. Mason Miranda beat Ty Mills 3-0. That was a. Let's see what other ones. Quinn Harris won 8-6. That might have. I mean, I'd almost consider that a win for Brownsburg. You'd think a returning state qualifier would be able to, get some more bonus onto that.
A lot of
Marcus Miranda. Yeah, I mean, 6-2, 7-6, 8-6.
1-0, 2-1 tiebreaker at 30-26.
Yeah, so that's looks like a great duel. Definitely good to have those types of duels. I mean, there's only 5 matches, where tournament or four pins or techs and then 1 major. So everything else was close decisions. So that's always a sign of a really good duel. But anything else we want to say before we wrap this up? Because it's getting past our bedtimes. Maybe not yours.
I just woke up. I just want to say thanks to Lake Central and Coach Alb and for letting me do the announcing. That was really exciting. I really enjoyed it. I hope my excitement came through. sometimes you get there and people are very monotone. Everyone was so positive. Some of the Penn parents came up and said they appreciated it. Chase Osborne's dad, Swank's dad. Jeremiah's mom, very polite, very like, hey, thank you. We really appreciate everything you guys do. So always when I get that kind of reaction, I'm always so happy. And so like the one guy from I think Lake Station that was upset that he thought I was assigning gyms wrong. Sorry, bud. I know you're not watching the show tonight, but I'm still sorry.
Nice. Any last words of wisdom, Dane? Other than send in results, and include.
That's right. List your losers along with your winners. Don't just list your winners.
Yes, and who they wrestled, because it makes a difference.
Correct.
If bump up or bump down or do whatever. I know there's with sicknesses and stuff going around. I know we're trying to string together teams sometimes, and it's a sickness goes through a team, and just like you guys said the other day with Hobart, they lost. I mean, they lost 2 or 3 of their top guns. So anyway, thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week. Maybe Monday, maybe Wednesday. I know I'm busy on Tuesdays and Thursday.
Thursday I'm gonna be going to Florida, guys. So
you're not gonna come for the Belmont Carroll duel?
If I can talk them into going through Fort Wayne to go to Florida from Chicago, we'll make it happen.
Sure. Just drive on that. You got good duel. It'd be a good way to start the trip. You'll be hyped. You'll be pumped up to make a 20-some-hour drive.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna take. So this is how happy I am to be like part of the wrestling community. I'm gonna leave a day early and drive through the night to come to Team State and hang out with you guys.
Nice.
A Carroll Supercharger T-shirt. I'm just joking.
We can get you one. We'll get you one. We know where your alliance is. You just got to get a few more ranked.
I told you it's at Portage. Actually, I just got a text saying I'm being too nice. So.
Uh-oh. So anyway, thank you guys for joining us, and we'll be back maybe next week sometime.